All right, well, I want to welcome everybody on today's teleconference. Today is day 2 for NRCT patients. And one of the things that I noticed with day 2 and where people kind of have the most struggles is we kind of had the question asked before we started the recording, so I kind of wanted to address it on the recording as well, is that your patients and their anticipation or their expectation that you're going to go over their x-rays and show them what's going on day 2. Basically, that is a day 4 function. It's not something that I would do on a day 2 because when you're handling, if you show them your x-rays and their exam findings on day 2, it's best to do that when you go over the finances. So if you're not handling finances on day 2, then basically I would wait to do that to day 4. And one of the things that happens is we ourselves kind of sometimes anticipate things that then occur. So in other words, if you expect your patient to want to see their x-rays, they're going to actually give that to you as something that they need. But if you look at the medical profession and the medical field, you know, they don't show you your x-rays. I mean, it's very difficult, and well, I wouldn't say difficult, but it's very rare that you actually get a medical doctor who sits down and goes over your x-rays unless you've asked for it. So, you know, your patients really don't come in with that anticipation, but what happens is we ourselves kind of plant that seed in there, or on the end of day 1, we'll say tomorrow we'll go over your x-rays and your exam findings with you, so then they're really expecting it. So you kind of have to change your verbiage, and if you listen to the recording that we did for day 1, there's nowhere in there that I even explained to them that I was going to show them their exam and their x-rays on day 2 because it's not a day 2 function. What you're looking at on day 2 is you want to get the person to understand the difference between health and function. And that's really what you're looking at. And these people already know they're not functioning, but they have no idea what health or obtaining health actually is, or even how they got so messed up. One of the greatest tools to use for day 2 is going to be the brain-body diagram. And I would use that in replacement of going over the exam findings and their x-rays. And I would hold off on the exam and x-rays till day 4 when I sat down and went over cost with them. And there's several reasons for that. But one of the things that you have to look at is once somebody sees how destroyed or how bad off they are, then it's easier to handle finances then. But if you do that on day 2, the problem or the issue becomes they haven't had enough education and they haven't received enough information to make a great educated decision in order to purchase your care. So if you cut down the 4-day process into a 2-day process, I'm just going to tell you that's kind of difficult to do, number 1. But number 2, it's hard to get in enough education so the person really gets it that once they're out of pain, that they still need to come in. And I can tell you that from firsthand experience in cutting up the 4-day process in every form and fashion you possibly could imagine. So the best rule of thumb and if you want the greatest results, is to take the exam and the x-rays and stick it in on day 4 and don't put it in on day 2. And I'll tell you, I know that's going to be difficult for those of you who are currently doing it, but you've got to change your verbiage that you're speaking to them on day 1. And instead of saying going over your consultation or going over your exam and x-ray findings, if you'll listen, there's an exit script at the end of day 1 that talks about, you know, I just want to let you know that our office is very different. We're very thorough. What we need is the evening to actually analyze your case. And tomorrow when you come back, this is going to go one of 2 ways. If I'm not able to help you, what I'll do is I'll refer you to the person I best feel I can. However, if you qualify for our type of care, what we're going to need to do is treat you about 3 times back-to-back, determine what we call your patient rate of response. Because when you come back tomorrow, I'm still not going to know how your body responds to care. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is to treat you a couple times before we can even find out, you know, how much care you're going to need or whether this is going to be the right fit for you. And that's how you wrap up your day 1. So when you wrap it up in that form or fashion, they don't come back the next day asking, hey, what did my x-ray show? What did my exam findings show? Because you didn't put the weight there. And that's really what happens is we ourselves put the weight on the exam and the x-rays to the point where the patient actually asks for them. So you've got to change your verbiage and watch what it is that you're saying, either all of day 1 or definitely at the end of day 1 so that your patient doesn't come back tomorrow going, hey, show me my exam, show me my x-rays. Now, with all that said, you still might have a patient who's very adamant about seeing their x-rays. And if you have a person who's very adamant about seeing their x-rays, then you're going to have to either show them a x-ray, and I wouldn't go into very long explanation or detail on it because you're going to have to do it again on day 4. But definitely I would calm their nerves about it so that they aren't over there going, well, why isn't this person showing me my x-rays? But that's only on a very difficult case. If I have a patient sitting in front of me who goes, Christina, I'd really like to see my x-rays today, it's very simple to say, listen, I'd love to show them to you today, but if I show them to you today, I don't have all the information that I need to go over with you, so I'm only going to be going over part of it, and then I have to go over that all over again to go over the rest of it when I go sit down with you on Thursday to go over with. So if it's okay with you, if I'd rather just do all of this on Thursday, would that be a problem? And then that way you're not getting bits and pieces along the way. And, 99% of the people will be handled by that. So you just have to watch it. And I did that kind of out of sequence, but I definitely wanted to make sure that I handled the question that got addressed before the recording started so each of you understood that, one, you don't want to show the x-rays in the exam today because, 2, the spouse isn't there. And you really want the spouse there so the spouse understands what's going on. So even if you did it on day 2 and you went over there examining the x-rays, you're still going to have to do it again on day 4. So you're doing double the work. And it's not, you just don't need to do double the work. Most patients have no problem flowing with you into where it is that you need to go. But you just have to explain why it is that you're doing what you're doing and don't leave them in the dark. I'll tell you, I can't tell you how many patients would come through my 4-day process or come through Singer's 4-day process with me doing it, and they would go, Christina, no one has ever explained this to me. And I just get baffled at that. I mean, because I can't imagine people getting under care without the amount of explanation. And the next thing that comes out of their mouth is, you are so upfront. It's just refreshing. And so when you start being really upfront with your patients, you'll find a dramatic change that's going to happen with them. Both in the expectations of them getting well and with them actually going, oh, my gosh, how come no one's ever explained this? And it becomes a very nice win-win situation for both of you. So when you're looking at day 2, the first thing you need to know is what is the result? What are you looking for on day 2? And so what you're looking for as far as the result on day 2 is concerned is that you want your patient to know that their symptoms are caused by meningeal compression. You don't need to go into that long explanation on day 1. Absolutely, you need to explain it on day 1, what meningeal compression is, but you don't want to sit there and tell them they have it because you haven't done an exam and an x-ray yet. So that's when day 2 comes in, and you explain to them that their symptoms are caused by meningeal compression. That's the first result they should have. Second, they need to know that as they're treated, symptoms are going to disappear or improve. And if they drop out of care when their symptoms are gone, with the underlying cause still in place, that their symptoms are going to return. And that's what you're looking at as day 2 results. So when you're done with your day 2, all you have to do is do some checks and balances with yourself and go, does my patient understand what caused their condition? Okay, well, yes, they do. All right. Does my patient understand that as they're treated, will the symptoms disappear or improve? Yes, they do. Okay, good. And if they drop out of care and the cause is still in place, but all the symptoms are gone, do they understand that everything's going to come back? And that's what you need to have as far as a good, solid result for day 2. If your patient doesn't understand one or several of those, your day 2 just wasn't very strong and you need to do some more drilling. One of the things about learning the 4-day process that's very helpful is anytime you get stuck like on a communication with a patient or you go, golly, that just didn't sit right with me or I don't feel like I handled that properly, your best thing to do is to write down what occurred, and then after you're all done, look at it and find a handle for it, and then drill the handle until it becomes second nature. I get so many clients who go, God, Christina, you're so good. How did you get that way? Well, how I got that way is every time I had a person who didn't close or I had a conversation with a person and it just didn't sit right with me, well, I sat down and I wrote out, what the patient said, how I handled it, and then I'd look at it and I'd go, well, how could I do that better? Or what could I have said that would have gotten the person to really understand what it was that we were trying to achieve? Or how come that person was willing to look at the condition? That's the other thing that happens is why weren't they willing? And so I would handle all those things, and I would drill it and drill it and drill it till it became second nature, to the point where, I have analogies in my toolbox. There's just no thought that has to come with it. And it becomes effortless. And that's how your 4-day process should be, regardless of whether you're doing an NRCT patient or a regular patient. It should be so effortless that it should be like a waltz. And that's the way I like to describe it. You should be just waltzing together instead of like, one person stepping on one person's foot and the other person stepping on the other person's foot. It should just be really smooth. And so by the time you get down to the finances, there shouldn't be anything to address except for the spouse. And the patient should be like biting at the bit for the care. So when you're looking at day 2 and its purpose is really to get the person to understand, the difference between what they call health versus function. So obviously the first step that you need to do is you need to explain to them that you have good news. And the script for that is, Sue, I just want to let you know I have some good news for you. And the good news is that we can help you. Based on our examination or x-ray findings, you have no complicating factors. However, you do have a serious condition going on. What we found is that you have meningeal compression. And you should have explained what meningeal compression is at the end of day 1. And so when you come here at day 2, you want to quiz them right here on that. And I would just say, I just want to make sure you have an understanding of what meningeal compression is. In your own words, would you explain to me what that means to you? If your patient gets it incorrectly, then you're simply going to fix whatever it is that you need to fix as far as that's concerned. Please don't say, oh, no, you said it wrong. Or, oh, no, that's not it. Don't make your patient wrong because they'll feel belittled. Nobody likes feeling belittled. Just sit there and say, oh, let me give you some more information, and then explain to them whatever it is that you need to explain to them. And then basically, if they have nerve interference as well, you can add in. And on top of that, you have a complicating factor. You have a lot of nerve interference on top of that. So not only do you have meningeal compression going on, but you also have a complicating factor where you have the nervous system being compressed as well. And when you look at the nervous system and you look at the fact that by the time somebody has pain, basically they've lost function because 90% of the nervous system controls function. Only 10% of it controls pain. So, Sue, if we're looking at your condition, by the time you have pain, guess what you're losing? And she should say right there, she should say function. I go, exactly. Does it make sense to you why everything is so serious in your situation? And she should say yes. If not, then you have some things that you need to address and handle. And the simple question would be, well, why wouldn't you consider that serious? And you just throw it back onto the patient. But basically, with your NRCT people, they just fall right in line because they're so messed up. So you don't really have a lot of patients who come back with, it's not that big of a deal, or they already understand that they're completely in a bad situation. So they just flow with you. And so right after you handle that step, which is the good news step, your next step is the fact that they want to know how long is it going to take and how much is it going to cost. And so you want to address that. And the first step that you want to address is time, obviously, or how long is it going to take. And so I would say, Sue, I just want to let you know, at this point, most patients have two primary questions, and that's going to be how long is it going to take and how much is it going to cost. And I just want to let you know, as far as how long is it going to take, we were talking to you yesterday, I'm not going to know until we actually treat you a couple times to find out what we call your patient rate of response. And that is how well your body responds to our type of treatment. So the thing that we need to do is we need to treat you back-to-back 3 days in a row. So we can do the first one today, the second one tomorrow, and the third one on Thursday. When you come in on Thursday, we'll sit down and we'll go over all the information we've gathered, kind of show you exactly how long we feel like it'll take, how much it will cost, show you your exam findings and your x-ray findings so that you can see it all in one sitting, so that we're not doing this piece by piece and you're getting everything at one time. Do you have any problems making it those 3 days in a row? If my patient does have a problem with that,